people like me. You need people like me so you can point your f***ing fingers and say, that's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy. That's the bad guy.
Okay, we'll start with this. Per veteran boxing scribe Keith Idek, Teofimo turned down Top Rank's final offer, way above his contract minimum, according to what I was told, before a deadline was set last night for a WBO 140-pound title fight versus Matias. Lopez and Matias would have fought in an ESPN pay-per-view main event March 15th in Vegas, to which Teofimo responded, "Thank you, Keith Idek, for being a stand-up man. I have something huge, but I cannot express more than that. Like I've been told, this is a business. Time to be one. Hashtag wisdom, friendships, and family." You can always tell when Teofimo did something stupid because he turns into a philosopher right after that. Get a load of Socrates over here. I am flattered and honored that you all would love to see me fight right now. However, I've got unfinished business with Top Rank Inc. I will be fighting this year, which is guaranteed by the powers that be, 369, soon. You will see why I did what I did. He's tried to leave the nest before, branch out before, and it didn't work out. The reason the George Kambosos fight took so long to make, and the reason that it all blew up in Teofimo's face, was Teofimo. Chasing just a few more dollars for what should have been an inexpensive fight to make, an easy fight to make, he made it difficult like he's making things difficult now. In the industry, I've learned that bad publicity is good publicity, unless it is something horrific like hitting women or hurting children. Another boxing bozo who fancies himself a wise guy, offering little more than tired old tropes and cliches as an explanation as to why he's not fighting. 2 times in a row. When they wanted him to fight Brian Norman towards the tail end of last year, and when they tried to negotiate a Subriel Matias fight at the beginning of this one. Same thing. He doesn't want to fight. He just doesn't want to fight. Doesn't want to work. Don't feel sorry for him. If you let the fighters and their teams tell the story, they're always underpaid, always underappreciated, always the victims if you let the fighters tell the story, and that is all you go off of. Teofimo continued, PSA, I haven't rejected the fight. They rejected my counter offer. What speaks to what I talked about in my previous video. These fighters want too much money every single time they get out there. They want a king's ransom to the point where it doesn't make for a sustainable business, and the boxing fans are none the wiser. Case in point, Nesta Gibbs was talking about how most of the content that the boxing promoters and the platforms are putting out is international content, not so much American.
You know, Matchroom, they giving us chips and fish out the wazoo. I'm tired of all the goddamn UK fights. If you on the zone, give me some shit for an American. You got these weirdo callers, oh, sick, universal sport, global sport. I don't want to hear that shit, my dude.
You might not, but your co-host is a party to the problem that you're accenting, that if you feel like not enough is happening in America, not enough fights for an American audience, look at your co-host. Tuton the Superstar, who regularly co-hosts on The Boxing Voice, said, exactly, stop hating on Teo. He's the only fighter trying to fight for legacy. Legacy is not the holdup here, buddy. Money is the holdup, and that Teo wants more of it. More than Top Rank is willing to pay out. You automatically assume that they're being cheap. You automatically assume that Teofimo is being mistreated somehow without knowing what the numbers are. Do you think that Lopez versus Matias should be billed as a $60 pay-per-view? 70, 80? You who's always bragging about your Fire Stick and how many fights you're gonna illegally stream there? What, you were gonna buy this one? If they did it If Top Rank satisfied Teofimo's financial demands, you were gonna buy it.
Please.
It's boxing fans and content creators like Two-Tone the Superstar that are part of the problem, enabling fighters like Teofimo
to be greedy, to not do their job.
Why are you feeling sorry for a fighter that literally makes more than the average American? You act like Teofimo's scratching and sniffing.
He's not.
He gets his guarantee, then pays off all the people that need to be paid, those deductibles, and he likely goes home with a few $100,000.
It's more than your average American. Your average American is not making 100,000, let alone 5 or 6.
So that when he pipes up with his financial demands, which are often in excess of what he's actually worth and what he can actually generate, that's not the cue for you to bring out the violins.
What are you throwing him a pity party for?
You understand that even if he's not clearing $1 million for a fight, not clearing it, going home with 600 to 700,000, that's still more than most people in the country, and that's what he gets for one fight. So if he fights 2 times in a calendar year, 3 times in a calendar year, he's making more than the vast majority of people in America, and here you are playing the violin?
Like he's an impoverished child or something.
I've noticed this trend in America the last few years, this pseudo-activism and feeling sorry for fighters that are just greedy.
It's just greed.
That's all you're really defending. His right to price himself out of a fight, his greed.
And the greed of any other fighter of a similar mindset.
The after effects of that greed, per boxing insider Rick Glacier. I'm being told that with Teofimo turning down the fight with Matias, and with his issues with Top Rank, the WBO will probably make the February 15th Catterall versus Barboza fight a WBO interim title fight, instead of the previously announced eliminator status. Great move by the WBO.
What's great about it? He's holding up the division. He's not defending the WBO title.
Simultaneously, he's preventing these guys from fighting for that title, because so long as this goes on, the WBO title is left in limbo, and the division and the sport is not allowed to progress.
Well, he plays business guy.
You're not that guy, pal. Trust me. You're not that guy.
All resulting in a stagnant division and a stagnant sport overall. When enough fighters of this mindset take a similar stance, this is what you get.
Nothing is happening in America. Gee, I wonder why.
Too many fans that think of themselves as boxing managers, fanagers, delving into issues they don't understand over dollar amounts they know nothing about.
But aren't you doing the same thing?
No, I'm a consumer, and my entire perspective is the consumer perspective.
Well, how is that different?
I think Teofimo is asking for too much money, and the smoking gun, the evidence that he's asking for too much money, is that Top Rank was actually going to bill this fight as a pay-per-view, even though it's not pay-per-view worthy. And even with that added effort, that extra opportunity for Teofimo to make some money if the fight sells more than its threshold, that still wasn't enough to get him in the ring with Subriel Matias.
He likely wants a guarantee so large that the fight is risky to put on.
Because if you let the fighters have it their way, it always works out to where they're supposed to get more money, more upfront, bigger guarantees, till everybody's bleeding red ink.
It's not sustainable as a business. For all the Americans you often hear say that boxing is a business, they know shit about business.
And dick about boxing. I say, if the kid don't want to fight, then don't fight. The show will go on. Top Rank has other fighters, more cooperative ones, that don't cost as much.
Emmanuel Navarrete moved up to lightweight for Dennis Berenchik. Unbeaten guy, dangerous, then moved down for a rematch with Oscar Valdez. Never get these problems from him, and he's an entertaining fighter.
Unbeaten up-and-comer Keyshawn Davis is about to fight that same Dennis Berenchik in a WBO title fight, to where if Teofimo doesn't want to fight, that's fine. I'll just watch somebody else.
But don't expect me to bring the soda and potato chips to his pity party.
All I see is a spoiled brat who doesn't want to do his job. Another boxer overestimating his marquee value. There also seems to be a separate report, preliminary news, that not only did Teofimo turn down the fight with Matias that we just talked about, but he also turned down a fight with unbeaten Raymond Muratalla, one of Top Rank's guys down there at 135. He was offered Raymond, and Teofimo didn't want to do that either. It seems that his plan might be to see out the life of his contract and sit on the bench waiting for it to expire, waiting for it to be void.
At which point, he can proceed with his career as a free agent, free to negotiate with whoever he wants to negotiate with.
But for what fight? With who? Under what promotional banner? We know he doesn't like Top Rank, but he doesn't like Matchroom either. You're shit out of luck if you think the PBC or Golden Boy Promotions are going to overpay you, because they're not. And what fights, with what fighters specifically, would he be pursuing as a free agent?
Would it be at 140? Would it be at 147?
You know, the Jack Catterall versus Arnold Barboza fight is a WBO interim title fight. Whoever wins that fight is going to put pressure on Teofimo to have a fight with them.
They're gonna put him on the spot, and if he doesn't comply, you know what happens. The brown belt is forfeit. That's assuming Teofimo has intentions of proceeding as a 140-pound fighter.
At 147, the WBA and WBC titles are over there on the PBC side of things. The IBF is at Matchroom.
The WBO is at Top Rank.
In the time it's taking Teofimo to return to action, you know that he might outgrow the 140-pound division and be forced to fight as a welterweight. But with whose welterweights would he square off with when he seems to have a problem with everyone he's worked with so far? Decision to forego the Subriel Matias fight doesn't just affect him, it affects Subriel Matias. There was a contingency plan in play for Subriel to face Elvis Rodriguez if things didn't work out with Teofimo, and things didn't work out with Teofimo, but they're not working with Elvis either. Elvis's team says they don't think Subriel deserves the opportunity.
It's just a fanciful way of getting out of a very difficult fight with a very dangerous puncher. That's all I see, because if they were gonna do this fight, I'd favor Subriel to beat the brakes off of Elvis.
And you wonder why there's no motion in the American boxing scene and the fighters that fight in this part of the world. Look at how Teofimo's decision to not fight has had a trickle-down effect on the entire 140-pound division, because it doesn't just affect him. And the way I see it, what a fighter like Teofimo resembles most in this situation is an unruly child, an ungrateful one.
I say ungrateful because it doesn't get said enough. That without these major promotional outfits that push and promote these young fighters...
Do you know how difficult it would be to get at an alphabet title without a major promoter pushing you and promoting you? The opportunities you squander are the opportunities another fighter doesn't have because they don't have a Top Rank investing in them the way Top Rank has invested in you.
People just don't understand the relationship.
And the fighters themselves, after a while, don't value it. You think of every situation where a fighter is at odds with his promoter, like it's Canelo and Golden Boy or Floyd Mayweather in Top Rank, and it's not.
That's not a one-size-fits-all answer for every situation.
This school of thought has blown up in Teofimo Lopez's face before, and it would seem that he still didn't learn his lesson. You're not yet in a place where you're supposed to be branching out. Those eggs need more bacon.
But you and all your bright ideas and all your greed.
That's all it is plain old greed. I wonder that this isn't gonna blow up in his face like the George Camboso situation blew up in his face. He refuses to admit it.
Seems to me what he's doing is waiting out the life of the deal on the bench. Did he read the fine print, though?
Did David McWater? Is it as simple as waiting on a specific date to get back out there as a free agent? Or are there strings still attached?
You'll forgive me if I don't trust Teofimo's judgment or would-be business savvy.
Just seems like another boxing bozo with a bunch of haphazard ideas to try and game the system, not realizing he's the one who's being played.
He's playing himself.
In men's super middleweight news, per tweet from Mike Kopinger, Jaime Munguia has exercised the rematch clause for a return bout with Bruno Surace after his 6th-round knockout loss in Tijuana. Sources tell ESPN the former champion was a favorite and frontrunner for upset of the year.
There were 4 major upsets this year by my count, 4 of them.
2 that involved Tim Tszyu, who was favored to beat Sebastian Fundora, then after that was favored to beat Bakram Murtazaliev. He was upset by both. Anthony Joshua, who was favored to beat Daniel Dubois in their fight, he instead got knocked out before the midway point. And then there was this.
Jaime Munguia getting knocked out by Bruno Surace of France, who to my knowledge, had never fought outside of France before that and only had 4 recorded knockouts. Him knocking out Jaime was really not on my bingo card, and I tend to measure upsets and how big they are based on how surprised I am.
I was. I knew there was a chance that Sebastian Fundora could give Tim Tszyu a tough fight, and Bakram Murtazaliev, and to some extent, Daniel Dubois. He's a hard puncher. He was coming off of 2 consecutive impressive victories over Jarrell Miller and Filip Hrgovic. That Daniel, compared to Bruno, stood a better chance of beating Anthony than Bruno stood of beating Jaime.
I don't think anybody had Bruno beating Jaime, so when it happened,
It was quite the shock. It really was the last thing that I expected, that not only would Jaime lose the fight, but he'd get knocked out the otherwise durable and game Jaime Munguia, who's been in there with bigger punchers and more impressive fighters than Bruno Surace. Now, the rematch between them is set for April 12th in Tijuana, just like the first fight.
ensuring that Jaime will get all the consideration he needs.
To get back in the winner's bracket, and predictably, I am going with Jaime Munguia this time. I am going with Jaime to do the job that he didn't do in the first fight and show Bruno a little bit more respect. It's conceivable that Jaime looked past him.
We all did.
So I'm expecting a camp in preparation for this rematch, more akin to the one for the John Ryder fight or the Sergey Didivianchenko fight, that now he knows not to trifle with this fighter.
In the corner.
I did wonder why Jaime Munguia made the decision to go back to Eric Morales when he had been training for 1 or 2 fights with Freddie Roach at Wildcard Gym, and he was showing improvement, substantial improvement over a short amount of time, just to go back to Eric.
Why?
Eric doesn't have Freddie Roach's track record in grooming fighters and training them to go on to become world champions, and on that premise I'd wager that Freddie is more expensive than Eric, that more comes out of Jaime's purse if he's got Freddie in the corner than if he has Eric in the corner. And that would be the why. That might be the reason he decided to go back to Eric after training with Freddie, even though he was showing improvement under Freddie.
So will he pay extra now and stop cutting corners?
I don't have the answer. Jaime Munguia is a fighter that I would have given favorable odds to beat Caleb Plant or Edgar Berlanga.
Christian Mabili before the Bruno Surace fight. Now, I just don't know. If a guy with 4 knockouts can sit you down and knock you out for the first time in your career, who's to say that they can't?
Now, I think that Jaime is going to do the job this time. I think he's going to stop Bruno, though moving forward, whatever fight he has, whether it's with Caleb or Christian,
Edgar or Diego at 168, it's got a very different complexion now. It's anybody's fight on the night.
hopefully the rematch between Jaime and Bruno comes on at a more reasonable hour. We'll see, because it's happening in Tijuana just like the first fight. And you will recall that that fight ran into the wee hours of the morning, that if you were on the East Coast and you were watching that thing,
At 1 a.m., they were still fighting. At 1 a.m.
I imagine that because the fight is happening in April, it will be shown on the ESPN platform again, just like the first one. Top Rank's deal with ESPN isn't set to be done until the summer months.
Later on in the year.
So there you have it. Jaime is out for blood. He's out for revenge, and I think he's going to get it.